All right. So welcome back to the CHP podcast. I'm here with Alec Blenis. He's one of our coaches and just an amazing now internet content creator in that he's just been educating literally thousands of people, thousands and thousands at this point. So, hey, Alec, how are you?
Hey Ariana, I am great. Thank you as always for having me on the podcast. I'm looking forward to diving into today's chat.
Yeah. So I brought Alec on today just so we could talk a little bit about the Battle Bunker competition, which happened back in October, right? October 28th.
Hmm.
So it was actually here in San Diego. It was in Chula Vista at the Olympic Training Center, which I didn't know existed. And it's crazy there. And I did actually manage to sneak in. I just invaded. And yeah, it looked really, really well put together from what I could see, and the workouts looked pretty cool from what I could see. But I really wanted to talk to you, Alec, and get your opinion because you were there doing it. So,
Yeah,
yeah, like just talk me through. I know you applied, right? You had to apply via an application process.
yeah. And the application was very sophisticated. It was like your name and your Instagram handle. um, um,
Perfect.
yeah, I mean, to me, so much about the competition was just so much of Hunter was you could really see his kind of heart and soul through it.
Yeah.
From the simple application to like, when people had questions about the workouts, he's like, I don't know, just go faster. Which I think I think it's frustrating to some people, but as someone who's been doing that kind of stuff a long time, it's like that's kind of all there is to it.
Yeah.
So I kind of appreciated that.
Yeah, that's very Hunter. Okay, well, at least I know that it was as Hunter as it looked like from the outside.
Yeah.
So talk me through, you were given rooms there, which is really awesome. So you're allowed to stay on base. I know that you did not, but they actually let the athletes stay there at the training center, which was awesome. Um, Talk me through like the day of competition, and the workouts that you had to do. I'm curious, especially that first one. I know you were concerned about the row.
Yeah. So and the workouts were all super cool. There was a really good
Yeah.
variety of kind of strength and endurance and skill. Some of the heavier weights, the rowing and kind of the sprint finish on that triple R event was kind of
Yeah.
exciting. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty because,
Hmm.
and I guess that's true with any event, but there's a lot of fantastic world class athletes that are gathered around. And I don't think I've ever seen such a that level of competition, all kind of sitting around being like, I don't know what to do, or like just so much like I don't know what to expect, how I'm going to do, how to pace.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of cool to see that caliber of athlete in a situation where they're like, I don't know, beats me.
Yeah.
Um, so that was kind of fun to see.
Hmm.
And us just kind of all lined up in the starting line, like we didn't know who was going to win, who's going to do whatever. Whereas, that's you never necessarily know exactly how a race is going to shake out. But if you're at a Spartan race, for example, some races are historically runners races, and you kind of have a pretty good idea of how things are going to shake out.
Yeah. And
But
whose
this one was
strength
a
is
total
what?
mystery,
Yeah. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So really cool to just go into it not knowing a whole lot and just waiting to see how it all unfolded, and um, even some of the uncertainty around like how are these things being scored exactly, and Hunter just
Yeah.
saying just run faster and you'll find out.
Yeah.
I thought all that was it was kind of fun as long as you're able to just kind of roll with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That I did see there was a little bit of frustration with the lack of transparency around scoring, at least while the event was going, because you had no idea where to focus your efforts on the event itself. But I feel like at the same time, like you said, that adds a layer of fun
Yeah.
from as an athlete because you're just kind of like, oh, I guess I just have to be good. Like,
Well, I think so much of it comes back to like athletes' expectations
yeah.
of like just because other events they tell you things doesn't mean other events have to. Like
Yeah.
the event can be whatever it wants, and if
Hmm.
that means not telling you certain things, then so be it. Like that's the event, and you have to deal with it. But I
Yeah.
think we just get used to like things being a certain way,
Hmm.
and then when they're not that thing, you're like thrown off your game or
Uncomfortable.
you get frustrated, and it's uncomfortable.
There's a lot of those athletes too there that specialize in one to two types of events, right? Like You've got Rylan who does Deca and Ryan Kent who does like High Rocks Deca, used to do Spartans, and then Isaiah who does the stadium races. So like these guys are in these like very fixed, they know their sport and they know the playing field and they know every
Mhm.
station and they know what to expect. And like I think when you guys are exposed to, like you said, like an event being like, well, we don't do that.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of like
Well, I think
um
one of the, and I just got to say, like, going into it, I think we often forget just what high level athletes some of these men and women are when we see like their times at a Spartan sprint. Like they did a Spartan sprint in 37 minutes. Like, okay, what is whatever?
yeah.
Um,
Uh
what does that mean?
yeah.
Um, but like for example, that first triple R event, 2 mile ruck with 50 pounds, 2K row, 800-meter track sprint.
Hmm.
Like I had tested because I don't really ruck. I had tested that in training just to make sure I wasn't going to get like totally wrecked by it. And I think in training I did it in the 2 mile run part in like I don't know 17 minutes, and I was like that's respectable. Like I'll hold my own. Like I don't really know, but that seems like a decent 2 mile ruck time with that kind of weight. Um, get out on the field and like we take off at like a 6 minute mile. I'm like, oh god, this isn't this isn't good.
Ah!
Um, but sure enough, like I end up actually holding it together pretty well, and still I think I do it's a great time for a 2 mile 50 pound rock in like 14 minutes.
Hmm.
And then Rylan does it in like 12. I'm like a 2 mile rock in 12 minutes with 50 pounds is insane. Like
Yeah.
to start off a multi event competition, and then to throw down like a sub 23800 at the end of that, just to like show the caliber of athlete we're talking about. Because I think oftentimes we don't get a clear picture of just how phenomenal some of these people are.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. That was my experience at the Spartan Games, was just like getting this like up close and personal view of all these athletes. Like you said, like in events they were uncomfortable with or unsure about, and like watching these guys and these women like Lindsay running the mile and a half test for the Army test at 7,000 feet. We were in Big Bear at 7,000 feet after a workout, sub 10, I think it was sub
Yeah,
10. It's insanity. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like it's like when they say like you need to have an average person do all the events at the Olympics just
right.
so that people understand like how impressive these people are, because their composure is so good. And like when you're next to them and then they're just pulling ahead and you're like, whoa, I didn't even think that was like accessible almost.
Yeah,
I didn't really consider that to be an option.
yeah,
You hang out with it and you're like, oh, I think I want to try to be that. Like, oh, that's really cool. Also, I noticed every single athlete that I spoke to hated at least one event, and that one event that they hated was always different based on their particular skill set. So like Chris Rogalski like hated the strength sandbag one,
yeah.
and she wasn't a huge fan of the ruck, but she loved the obstacle. What did she win? The
Right.
obstacle. So it's just one of those. I did really appreciate that about the event selection and the workout choice, was that every single athlete there hated at least one or didn't like at least one or felt weak in at least one, which I feel
Yeah,
like means it was a good spread of
yeah.
disciplines.
I think for me, I either misjudged myself slash misjudged the demands of the events. In that the first event, Triple R, I was kind of worried about because like I've kind of had cardio on the back burner, so I was like a little
Hmm.
hesitant going into that. Probably a little too cautious with the pace. Like I
Hmm.
realized about like 3/4 of the way through the row that I wasn't working hard. I'm like, I'm just sitting here. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, I should be
Because
ripping this like
right.
yeah.
But I was just like so nervous about like my cardio is not where I want it to be. Like I don't want to flame out and then like just be wrecked for the rest of the weekend or anything. That like I was kind of partway through that event. Like maybe I should have probably pushed this a little bit harder.
Hmm.
Um, so I actually did better in that event than I thought because I think even being overly cautious, overly conservative, I think I still was 11th in that event. So
Hmm.
I actually feel really good about that. And then I thought I would do great in the foo bar because my strength has come a long way. Like just my barbell lifts are going super, super well. So I was like, I'm like one of the strongest people here or whatever, like at least in terms of gym numbers or
Hmm.
gym speak.
Yeah.
Um, and then you get out there and just this feel like it's just so weird to like just a few days prior, like power cleaning, a 200 plus pound barbell and it feels super light. And then you go to like clean a 100-pound sandbag and it feels heavy. Like, what
Hmm.
the fuck, man? Like,
Yeah.
this doesn't, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so just to kind of like take the skill component out of it and like take away all the technical proficiency and just bring it back to just like odd objects lifts and like how strong are you at this thing that you were completely unfamiliar with is a
Hmm.
total game changer. So it was super humbling for me to go in like thinking I was super strong and then like having 100-pound sandbag just like wreck me. It's like
Yeah.
I got some work to do.
Yeah.
So definitely kind of a surprise just in terms of how I felt going across some of those. The obstacle event was my best event. Um, I think I think I was in the top 10
Yeah. You were
on
super
the
high in
obstacle
that one.
course.
Yeah.
Um, and that felt good because I haven't done an obstacle course of any kind minus I did do some obstacles in the Spartan Hawaii this year, but prior to that, it'd been like 7 years or something since I'd done an
Yeah.
obstacle course. So just in terms of like technical proficiency and confidence, I was like, I don't know, I think I know how to do this. Um,
Yeah.
so it was very much muscle memory. Which is tough because finishing an obstacle is one thing, but to just like rip through it and not have to think about it and do them super fast without being
Yeah.
able to catch your breath or analyze it or anything like that was tricky. Um, I even watching the footage of myself, I saw a couple obstacles where I could just see I hesitated for a second and was like, okay, what do I do again?
Yeah.
um,
Loading.
so
Loading.
but right, it's like refiguring this out. But all in all, I think I did well. The muscle memory came back, so I really enjoyed the O course. Um, but yeah, I'm still like thinking about that sandbag. Like, why was that so heavy? It just is wild.
Yeah. Odd objects are a mind fuck. Um,
Yeah,
like for me, sandbags are pretty tough, but also like Atlas stones, because like my deadlift's 400 plus pounds, but me getting 100-pound plus Atlas stone off the ground is like it feels so hard. And I'm like, what the hell? Like
yeah,
this is nothing. This weight I press overhead and I can't even, but I think it's something about like probably the positioning and just not being comfortable and like not being able to exert maximum drive because your entire body's like you're gonna get hurt.
yeah.
This isn't right. This
Well,
feels really hard.
for me, like I'm a pretty short guy, so like when I'm doing a deadlift, I feel like that generally is to my advantage, like being fairly compact, short levers, whatever. But then in the case of the kind of floppy loose sandbag with long handles, being short, like there's no distance to like build strength or power off the ground. Like
Yeah.
the handles are already like at my knees, and I have to take 100-pound sandbag from the floor to my shoulders with like
Hmm.
4 inches of like actual pull.
Yeah.
So just like the actual rate of like power that required compared to what I'm used to with the barbell is just so different. So yeah,
And so
definitely.
random. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny. I think someone actually, the women, I guess, their sandbags were the same sandbags you guys had, but with
So
less
unkind.
sand. Yeah, with less sand.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like um the sand was shifting because the bag wasn't smaller. So like the women were saying that they would do a clean and like there'd be more sand on one side. And so it would
Yeah.
be like lopsided. I think they're looking at getting like a different sandbag sponsor in for next year or something like that. So I was hearing that complaint a lot too about how the sandbags were like really tough, but normally the sandbag events use different sandbags or different equipment that is more
Yeah.
suited to doing a clean and it's more compact. But I also think
Yeah.
to your point, like as an athlete, when you're faced with a challenge, like is it always perfect?
Right.
Is it always the most ideal?
Yeah.
No.
You just got to run with it.
Yeah.
I would love to see, if I was ever to design my own event, like if I had to build an event like that
Yeah.
I would do well at. um,
But isn't that the thing though? We always write what we're going to be good at. So that's fine. Go for it.
right, right. But like, I would love to see an event like that where you replace, the 100-pound sandbag with like a 225-pound barbell or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, I think that would change things up significantly,
Yeah.
just in terms of like what types of strengths rose to the top. I
Hmm.
heard some people say that they liked that the sandbag was more like I heard some people describe it as like it's less about skill and more about true strength or like actual fitness or whatever, which I thought was not necessarily true because
Correct.
any implement you use, whether it's a sandbag or a barbell or an Atlas stone, like there's a specific technique and specific set of skills that's required to do it
Hmm.
efficiently.
Yeah,
So I
odd
think
objects
it's
aren't just brute force.
right. Yeah, so I think that idea that like, oh, it's a sandbag, so it's more like representative of actual fitness than like barbell skill, I thought was kind of misleading.
Hmm.
But
It's like a weird.
certainly a fun challenge.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a strange myth that started with like functional odd objecty stuff. I think the challenge it prevents to barbell people um, makes them think that it is inherently harder when
Right,
it's just a different set of skills, a different set of challenges, or like, in the case of the sandbags, maybe it's just faulty equipment. Like
right,
maybe it's just the fact that the equipment has handles that are too long for the prescribed movement. Um, Whatever it may be, you could even be looking at an Atlas stone that's lopsided, or, whatever it might be. Like some of the Atlas stones at my gym, they're really difficult to get your hands under because the bottoms are flat.
oh yeah,
So if you roll it down, it's going to land on your fingers. So you can't
yeah,
get a full grip on it because it's flat on the bottom. So like that to me, I was like, okay, this is hard and I'm going to figure it out. But if this was a round Atlas stone, I would be able to get at least 2 more inches of my hands directly under this ball. And I
right,
can't. And I'm like, that's got to count for something. Like that's got to count for something. So yeah, I think
yeah,
much it's if you were doing strongman, each piece of equipment would be perfectly calibrated the same way a barbell is in a barbell sport. Like
yeah.
throwing
Well,
a
and you
bunch of
practice with it
random,
and you figure out like, oh, this is how you lift this type of object
yeah.
and that kind
Hmm.
of thing. But yeah, I enjoyed like having to do something that's like totally out of my wheelhouse. Like you get there and figure it out on the spot.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm just really glad you did it because like I knew you would be top 10, but like I didn't want to say it, but like I knew you'd be top 10. Um, because I think, too, the endurance, even though you say that your endurance took a back burner, I mean, you're with dudes that are all endurance and you still place top 10. So like clearly your idea of back burner is still like really damn high. And I think the time domains on most of those events too were still 100% within you didn't really hit a limit with any of those, did you?
No, I felt good even, like running with Farron, he has like a marathon rock world record,
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so like to, hold my own at least on like a ruck run with like a rucking world record holder.
Yeah.
Um, I think he got like maybe fifth or sixth in that event and I was 10th or 11th. So like to be within a minute or so of like, literally some of the best people in the world at these specific things did feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, even if there's always going to be that feeling where you finish and you're like, oh, I could have done this, or I'm not the fittest I've ever been in this way,
Hmm.
and that kind of thing. Um, but I think that's the thing with this kind of like hybrid space is I don't think I'm ever going to be able to say, well, maybe we'll see, but I don't think I'm ever going to be able to say I'm the fittest I've ever been because there's so many different elements of it. Like I'm stronger than I've ever been, but I'm not, I don't have the aerobic capacity that I did 5 years ago. And there's always going to be these kind of ebbs and flows. So just kind of rolling with some of those changes into all these events and seeing what happens.
Yeah. So that's the fun part about hybrid fitness to me is that you kind of have like seasons but you're always proficient enough to be close enough to the people who are top in the sport. Like to me, that's how I measure. Like I I'm not going to win a deadlift competition because I don't specialize enough, but my deadlift's pretty close. I'm not going to
Yeah.
win a running race because I don't specialize enough, but I'm not going to be last. So like to me, like that's how I'm measuring myself against the top performers, but only just so that I can be like, okay, if I quit
Right.
everything and did this one sport, I'd probably jump up like this many spaces. I'm not gonna, but like
Yeah.
I want to be like top-ish, which is probably why both of us are like training all the time. But
Right. Well, like so earlier this year, I've always been like a decent squatter, even though I've like not necessarily focused on the powerlifting side of things specifically. I just have decent leverages for it, and kind of always find some sort of squat pattern in my training rotation. But I've been getting closer to like a lifetime goal of actually hitting the 3-time body weight squat.
Yeah, so you're really
So
close.
I'm really close. So I'm like, if I would just focus on this a little bit more, I think I'll get it. So this year I've been doing a lot more squat training, trying to close the gap. I got like 20 more pounds to go, which I think just a little taper or whatever, I
Yeah.
could probably grind it out. But anyway, I've been working through my squat, and then I also decided to sign up for a marathon, thinking like I really need to get my ass in gear with aerobic training. Maybe just
Hmm.
signing up for a marathon will force me to do it. But it's like every week I'm like, do I want to go for a run or do I want to like do some more squats kind of thing? And I like
Hmm.
kept choosing to like shorten the runs a little bit, or like I don't really feel like running as long as I'm supposed to today because I'm going to squat tomorrow. I
Hmm.
just kind of like kept making those choices. So sure enough, the marathon gets to be like 6 weeks out, and I'm like, fuck it, I don't need to train for this shit. I'm just gonna do
Yeah, yeah.
it.
You like take
So
the
like,
L. You're like, my heart's not in it. Like, whatever.
yeah, yeah, I'm like, whatever, man. Like, I'm just gonna keep doing what I feel like doing, which is just like kind of grinding away at the strength. And the marathon's probably gonna be a shit show, and so be it.
Yeah.
So that happened. I ended up still running a 3:10, which I felt pretty good about, like all
Yeah.
things considered.
Yeah,
Um,
seriously.
but then you finish, and you're like, man, what if I had actually done those workouts I was supposed to do?
Hmm. But isn't it
But
like a,
that's the hybrid thing.
yeah, isn't it a different state of mind though? Like, I feel like, especially at this point in your athletic career, to know what needs to be done, to know that if you did it, you would have the desired result. Like, there's no question of your ability. And then to know that you chose not to do it, doesn't it like remove a lot of the mental mind fuckery, at least about like running your first marathon when you're like, I don't know if I could do this. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to complete this or any of those doubts. Like, I feel like once you've done enough different things and you've pushed your body in enough different directions and you've built this background of confidence in your ability to adapt and improve when you do the work, when you're
Yeah,
choosing not to, and this is dangerous too, because you choose not to and you're like, whatever, whatever. Like, it can be a dangerous kind of mindset on the same flip side where you're like, I don't need to do that. I could, but I won't.
yeah,
But I think in a lot of ways, like I wish I could give that to people where I could be like, hey, no, you could totally run a marathon. Like, don't even worry about it. Of course you can. My question is,
yeah,
do you want to run that much? And is the goal you've chosen for your time feasible given how much you don't seem to like running past 15 miles? Like,
yeah,
do you need to prove to yourself that you can complete the marathon? Because we know you can. Or do you want
yeah,
to prove to yourself that you can run a good one? Like, do you
yeah.
want to run a 3 hour or a 350, like, or 3:30? Because in that case, you really need to put your ass in gear. But if you just want to finish it, we know
Yeah.
you can do that. Like, I don't know. Does that
Well,
change kind of how you approach sport, or at least reduce some of the, like you were saying, like when you're post event and then you're thinking, oh, I could have done that better. Is it easier to just be like, I know I didn't do what I had to do, and if I wanted to have
yeah,
done it, I would have. Like,
right. I mean, for me, like I've pushed myself hard enough in a variety of directions over the years that I have a pretty good understanding of, if I want to run X marathon time, this is what it's going to take. This is the amount of work that's going to be involved, and I know, like, is that something I want to do or not? And that takes some of the like fun and mystery out of, like, I wonder if I can do this, because it's
mhm,
like, I can. It's just that question of, do I want to do this?
yeah,
But what gets more interesting now for me is when you add in that hybrid component
yeah,
of like, can I, squat triple body weight and run a sub 3 hour marathon in the same month? I don't know if I can do that.
yeah.
Can I do one of those things? Yeah, I know I can, and I know what it's going to take. Can I do both? That's a little more interesting, and to me, that's a little bit more motivating, as well, just to kind of explore some of those limits.
Hmm. I think that's why we're seeing a lot of people push into the hybrid space too. It's because I think you see so many athletes that get to such a level of excellence in one area, and then they're like, now I'm bored. Like,
Yeah,
I want to really challenge myself. How do I do that? I need to choose something that could be impossible. And that's like the draw of the hybrid thing is like, is it
Right.
impossible?
And then if it came back to like how hard could I push myself in one discipline, like how fast could I really run a marathon if I went all in? I don't necessarily know exactly what that number would be, but I know it wouldn't be anything to write home about, and I really don't want to put in the amount of work to find out.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
just like a very easy like I'm not sure, I don't care.
yeah.
I'd rather pursue something a little just something that's more interesting to me.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's like maybe that's just experience in participating in as many sports as you have. But I just think that's just such excellent self-awareness to just be like, nah, no,
Yeah.
no.
Like if I thought I was someone like if I thought I could train hard enough to run like I don't know a 205 or some shit, be like yeah I might want to like explore that possibility, but that's just not even in the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Um, and unless we're talking something like that, like I'm not gonna run 120 miles a week for the next decade to run a 220 or something. That just sounds awful.
Yeah. That's just not a place you want to end up.
No.
But if you did, I'm sure you'd be already be doing it, but like you
Yeah.
don't. You don't.
Yeah.
No, I see that a lot. And I have to tell people that a lot too, where I'm like, just let it go. Just let it
Yeah.
go. You don't care. This is arbitrary. Um, so like especially with the obstacle course, I noticed that a lot of the obstacles in the battle bunker one, they sort of like ramped up in the need for proficiency. Because the one was like rings to a rope, and then the next one was actually rings hooked, right?
Yeah. 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 The
Um,
the rings hook, and that was one. I was a little bit confused at the end of that one on like whether I had to get the rings off the hooks or if I could just
leave them.
go. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I like got off and I was kind of standing there a second, and they're like, "Go, go, go!" I'm like, "Okay."
Bye.
um, yeah. I generally found like most of the obstacles there, um, I'd say almost any of the obstacles there, your average obstacle course participant can do them.
Hmm.
I don't think anything was so challenging that's like, oh man, how do you do that? It's just take like the rings and the hooks, like being able to sprint into that and just jump and go with no errors and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Like I made one error as I was swinging to like release a hook got caught, so I had to kind of catch myself and swing again.
Yeah.
Which in a long course race, like big whoop, you just lost 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Um,
Whatever.
but like 3 seconds is an entire place or two um, in this. So like being very very efficient and not making some of those mistakes was really important.
Yeah. Watching some of the very proficient athletes go through that course was like, how'd they make it look so easy?
Yeah,
Like that it was flowy. And I know if it was me out there, I would have been like a dump truck. Like I would have
yeah.
got through it, but like it would have looked chaotic and it would have looked really rough. Um,
Well,
I
I
don't know.
made a very silly error that it wasn't very apparent on the actual footage what was going on. It may have just looked like I was catching my breath, but on one of the obstacles, probably the easiest obstacle of the whole thing, where you just had to grab a rope and kind of swing across
Hmm.
and hop down. I just jumped up there and started to lose my balance, and like I was kind of like going back and forth like a couple inches for like 5 whole seconds, being like, "What is? Get it together, man!" But it was like literally the easiest, simplest, like not even doing an obstacle, just like stepping up to begin one, and I was like, "Oh shit!" um,
Out of the
so I
groove.
lost, yeah, lost the groove. So it's like just rewatching. I'm like, well, that's an easy 5 seconds. That's an easy 3 seconds. And you like
Hmm.
add them up, and you're like, there's like all these easy little like in theory, at least in theory, easy to shave off 30 to 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Obviously, easier said than done. Um, but it takes like a very serious level of proficiency and confidence, and skill to be able to run through it and not make any of those mistakes. It's
Yeah.
very tough.
Yeah. I think that's interesting that hearing you say that too, like knowing that Spartan is moving to that 5K format, like purely, it's just sprints now for the elites. I think for 2023, there's no super races. There's nothing. The format's just 5K. Um, I think that's intense. That's
Yeah.
intense because like you'll have people running the entire race next to each other. Like that's
The
gnarly.
only the only thing that I would like to see change, which unfortunately I don't see it happening just with like kind of the volume play of wanting to get a lot of people doing these things, but
Hmm.
like none of the obstacles, at least for a higher or even intermediate level athlete, are actually challenging.
Hmm.
It's just how quickly can you do it? Are you familiar with the obstacle?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Like it's often the thing of exposure of like, oh, I've done this obstacle 10 times now. I kind of figured it out
Hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of like, oh my God, that obstacle is so hard. My arms are like dead afterwards. Like there's really none of that going on.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it'd be really cool to see some obstacles that like, especially like rig style obstacles,
Yeah.
that actually challenge people's muscular strength and muscular endurance and stuff
Hmm.
a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, I just don't know if that's something we'll see much of.
Yeah. Because there's Savage Race, which is pretty nuts. Like if you fail an obstacle or something, don't they like take away your band? Or like
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah,
like an East Coast thing, but like apparently Savage Race is like one of the more difficult. Um, I think they're going to be doing the Go Ruck games again this year, and Savage was like the obstacle course from that. And I had a bunch of friends from Spartan that did the Savage Race, and they were like, "That is the hardest race I've ever done." Like
yeah,
the same like about the obstacles just being so difficult, and not something they could just flow through, but being something that they had to like muscle their ways through or hold L's or extreme control and dexterity by ring on hook or something like that. um,
yeah,
I thought that was really cool. I agree, especially now that I'm coaching like obstacle course racing and I'm watching. I have one woman in my evening class. She's in her 60s, and like she flows through all of these obstacles like perfect, like just flows, totally flows, and
yeah,
isn't even like startled by them. And it's just really, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess this really is a familiarity game and a practice game, almost more than it is an overall fitness. It's just how well do you know this obstacle, and can you swing at the appropriate rhythm to
right,
get through it. Like
yeah,
yeah, that's been a bit of an eye opener for me personally, because I always looked at it as like, wow, that must be so hard. And now I'm like, oh yeah, you just got to move your knees. Like,
yeah,
like watching people get it and be like, wow, this really is just like a rhythm game. Like,
yeah. I think for like the entry level or beginner to intermediate level competitor, the weekend warrior type, like they might get to some of these things and like it's more physically challenging.
yeah,
Um, but especially like if you're a lighter weight endurance athlete type person, like
elite level, yeah,
it's not particular, like monkey bars are not challenging other than like if it rained or it's muddy,
yeah,
or and then it's just a matter of like, have you done them enough times to know how to like skip rungs or whatever. And
yeah,
to me it's just kind of, it loses some of its excitement.
yeah.
um Especially like thinking about, for example, this battle bunker course. It had 22 obstacles, which is on par with say how many obstacles are going to be at like a Spartan sprint.
Hmm.
A super beast has a little bit more. But like the top guys were between say 5 and 7 minutes, right? Um, so like course record 5 minutes. Me in like 10th place on that was like 6.5. So not a tremendous spread, right?
Yeah,
So like really just 5 to 7 minutes.
hmm
If you take those, that and then add on 5 miles of running, you know, we're looking then at, like a Spartan sprint or super Spartan or whatever, with the obstacles. If only maybe a minute of the entire spread of the course comes down to the obstacles, how much is it really an obstacle race?
yeah, it's
You know what I
running.
mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
if you take it down to just the obstacles, right? Like a minute out of 5 or 6 is substantial percentage wise, but add on a 5 to 10 mile running course, and you're spending 5 versus 6 minutes on an obstacle, depending on how on obstacles overall, depending on how good you are. To me, that is hardly an obstacle course race at all. So to me, it's just not exciting in that regard.
No, I mean, I agree. I agree with you completely, because I'm like, I would have to run 6-minute miles the whole time in order to be competitive. Not even, I could fail every obstacle at this point, and like
Yeah,
you can run fast enough to just make up for it, which is pretty
yeah,
gnarly, especially now they remove burpees. Um,
yeah. To me, it's less of an obstacle race and more of a a trail race. That there's I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. There's kind of a minimum level of proficiency when it comes to the obstacles. Like you have to be able to do them,
Yeah.
but you
Hmm.
certainly don't have to be good at them. Like you could be
You could
one
muddle
of the
through.
worst. You could muddle through it, be a minute or two slower across the board, and like that's not really a big deal in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Um, so I would
I,
like to see some more challenging, significantly more challenging, especially in terms of like actual fitness and output and strength and stuff for some of those, as opposed to just, oh, this one's even grippier than than the last one you just did.
yeah. Yeah. Or
Um,
like a spear.
it's like it's all kind of some of the same type of challenge of just like grip, more grip,
Hmm.
um, something random or wonky, and then back to grip.
Hmm.
So I'd like to see some of that change up a little bit.
I agree. I agree completely. I would be terrible. I'm terrible at obstacles, but from a competitor standpoint, I mean, I agree. I think it would be cool to see like especially now that they're considering it as an Olympic sport, seeing it truly become obstacle heavy and like I mean, damn, we've got Ninja, the whole Ninja Warrior thing. Like we've
I
got
remember I can't remember which obstacle race it was at, but it was like basically parallel bars that you had to do a dip walk across. And I was like, thank God this was something other than just hanging. Like
yeah,
it's, it
yeah.
was great to see something different. And obviously you got like your object carries and whatnot.
Hmm.
But just something as simple as that, I was like, oh, I'm actually like I can feel my shoulders. Like, wow, there's other
Things
things that we
happening.
can do.
Yeah.
So I would just love to see some more of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's funny, going to this gym and even to the Spartan Games, the women's weights for me, I I could have done the men's weights. Like
Yeah,
the women's deadlift was 165, the men's was 225 for 10 reps. I mean, 225 would have been much more challenging for me. 165 was as much as I weighed. It was actually less than
yeah.
I weighed at the time. So I was like, it's difficult because there is a spread of athlete too. Like there's just this specific like very light, very lean, very there's not much
Yeah.
strength. I don't even think they understand how much strength isn't a factor. Like
Well, so I think a good thing for them to do, because like in an event like that, I'm putting myself in the shoes of the race director of like, okay, what weight's appropriate that like
for athlete
most people
safety.
can do it and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And like you end up again just kind of having this thing where it's okay, how fast are people? And then you set this minimum threshold of like,
Hmm.
as long as you can deadlift this 10 times, then it's just a running race kind of thing, as opposed to like actually rewarding more strength, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
Something where it's like, uh, I don't know, you have 2 minutes to do as many reps as possible,
Yeah.
or
Or a ladder
some sort
or
of a deadlift ladder, and like you get a certain handicap or something for how far you make it.
hmm.
Um, I think that'd be I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. I think that would be awesome because it's like, I mean, I loved being a part of the games. Don't get me wrong. It was really fun. It was definitely really geared toward endurance, heavily. But it was the kind of thing where while I was there, I was like, why would you invite a strength athlete, but not give me anything? Like
Yeah,
not give me anything, really. You're just being like, look how bad she is at endurance stuff. And I'm like, no shit. I was prepping for
yeah,
a powerlifting meet when you pulled me in. Like I think and that's fine, it's their event. It was still fun as hell, but it was just definitely one of those things where I was there. I was like, why am I here? Um,
yeah,
there's not anything where the endurance athletes are being pushed to the degree that I'm being pushed out of my comfort zone, out of my sport proficiency. I'm just seeing them being pushed a little bit, but they're being given their stuff. And I was
yeah.
like, man, like if I could have written the workouts, if I could have been involved, like, and I would have invited someone like me, I would have done like a ladder or something that was just kind of like, all right, and here's where the endurance people fall off. Like,
Yeah. And that's what I think is so great about the Crucible is like you actually reward people for being strong and you
yeah.
reward people for being able to run far.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, it's a hell of an event. Like,
It's a
um,
lot. I don't think I would
it's
love to do it in a
a lot of
weekend,
things.
but someone might die. I don't know.
Well, I think it'd be cool to have a version of it in a weekend.
Hmm.
Um, I'm still trying to piece together like how it would all work logistically. But essentially do like a super total meet
Hmm.
and run a half marathon like all on a weekend or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
or I don't know, it could be something totally off the wall, like kind of CrossFit Games ish, where like you have a deadlift event and a sandbag event and a 5K or whatever. but
Yeah.
kind of balance out some of the, you know, energy
Discrepancies.
systems and skills and whatever, however you want to talk about it. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think that should be a thing. I would love to be a part of something like that.
Me too. We've been clearing our yard, and we have a horse arena now. It's like legit, I think 50,000 pounds of sand. Um, and my brain is like, we could totally host a fitness competition here.
Well,
Like,
so what I think I'm just gonna say what I think we should do.
okay, go for it. I'm
um,
gonna take notes.
all right, so first of all, we need like a large enough prize purse to incentivize like high level athletes from a variety of sports, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I would like to see a competition where like when the workouts are released, you have people from every sport, from obstacle racing to high level CrossFitters. You have such a wide variety of athletes, all thinking, "I have a shot at that."
Hmm.
Not like, "Oh, that's I know who's
That's
gonna win."
not my
Like
sport.
that's
Hmm.
not my thing. I want like high level athletes, a wide variety, being like, "Oh, I might have a shot at that," and like have the prize purse run deeply enough that they're like, I don't know if I'll win, but I think I'll place, and like
Yeah.
really incentivize a lot of people to want to give it a shot.
I could
Um,
win that workout, and I know I could place in that workout and like really start get
right.
people's gears
Even
turning.
if you have like maybe a top three overall, and there's a bonus for each event win,
Hmm.
something like that. So that even if you just have some massive deadlifter, they're like, sure, I'll fly out to San Diego and clean up, a
Yeah.
grand or something for a
Yeah.
deadlift.
Yeah.
Just like get some sick athletes out there doing, cool shit.
Let's do
Um,
it.
it makes some cool like video too. Like if you really did get some people out there, like some amazing event winners, see who wins overall, but like go for extreme variety in
Hmm.
terms of like what the events actually are. I think it'd be sick.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been dreaming about it like since before I did the games, and then I did the games, and I was like, oh, I could do this cooler. Like, dang it. And then they did the Go Ruck games, and then they did the Battle Bunker, and like every time I was like, okay, but this is OCR. Like,
Yeah.
okay, but this is OCR. Like, where are my strength people at? Where are my CrossFitters at? Like, you can't tell me that if you're a CrossFitter, you're gonna do well, but then not include barbells. You can't. You can't.
Right. Yeah.
No, you can't do that to me. Like,
Yeah.
no,
I think
I
something that has barbells, has odd objects, has a few like true endurance pieces, like
yeah.
just throw it all in there.
Let's do it. Just gotta find some sponsors and
Yeah.
just start saving for that price purse in general. But yeah, let's do it. I've been dreaming about it for forever. So maybe like hosting the Crucible in October and then doing something like in the spring that's
Yeah.
like a refined like invite only, or like get people to apply if they're interested or something like that. But just do smaller groups. like
Right.
like 16 athletes or something like that, or 20. 40 was a good
Yeah.
number, but I feel like that's a lot. It's a pretty deep field.
Yeah. And it can always be one of those things where it's the prize purse is based on registrations.
Hmm.
So like as more people do it,
The bigger it can
the
get.
prize purse goes up and that kind of thing. But yeah, um, that'll be awesome when it happens. I'm looking forward to being a part of
Yeah, yeah, okay. Well, now I guess I really got to start working on that. Dang
it.
it. No, because I think that would be so cool. And I think too, like you and I have such a, a perspective. I think because you've done so many sports, you understand where, like in Battle Bunker, where you could have exhibited more specificity and you weren't given the opportunity to, or um, you were actually able to push harder than you thought. Like,
Yeah.
so I think using that depth of experience to create something that's truly well rounded as a competition, as a fitness test, would be really special. Because I don't think we really have anything like that. I mean, even the CrossFit Games is CrossFit. You have to be good at CrossFit to do the
Right.
CrossFit Games, and you have to be good at OCR to do OCR stuff. But like, what's something where you truly could get a big cross section of
Yeah.
athletes, and everyone thinks they could maybe place?
Right.
That'd be
Yeah.
cool.
That'll be interesting to brainstorm. Even if
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to trying to come up with some ideas for that. It'll be cool.
this is going on my calendar. You are now committed to now we can do this.
Awesome.
All right. Well, on that note, I think I have to let you go, but thank you for coming on and talking about this. I think it's always really cool, and I think it's really exciting, just to see how like even you say that, you know, your training didn't set you up to do well, and then you did really freaking well. I think it's just a testament to how good your coaching is and how good your training is. You know, we're always in it thinking we could do better, and we're always in it thinking that we're not doing enough. And then when we get on a stage, yeah, sure, you know, if you had done a few things differently, could you have placed higher? Maybe, but like you weren't training for it. I think that's
Yeah.
the beauty of the hybrid fitness thing is you can jump into anything at any time and do okay. You could do a 3:10 marathon after going fuck it 6 weeks before.
I
Like,
mean, I think for as much as like, the set principle or specificity is like a cornerstone of, training and
mhm,
physiological adaptation. Um, I think sometimes we get so focused on that side of things that we forget like how far you can take just general fitness and
yeah,
like general physical preparation.
yeah,
Like just getting really freaking fit in just the most general sense of the word can
hmm,
take you really, really far before like specificity becomes of truly utmost importance.
yeah,
I think that's a really cool aspect of concurrent performance.
yeah. I agree. I think you basically just exemplified it, like by just charging in and being like, "Yo, guys, what's up?" Like, I haven't been here for
Yeah.
7 years, but what's going on?
Yep.
So yeah, congratulations. I loved getting to see you perform um in that field, in that arena, just as much as I like getting to see you compete everywhere else. So awesome job.
Thank you very much. Nice chatting with you as always, Ariana.
Yeah, same.